I never thought I'd be writing this story, but here I am, staring at the numbers that changed my life forever. My name is Alex Carter. I'm 42, a financial advisor in Boston, and I believed my marriage was solid. I'd trusted everything about my wife, Jenna. Her decisions, her judgment, even her quiet insistence that we were financially safe. Turns out, I couldn't have been more wrong. It started with a single email that caught my eye one Thursday morning. A notice from one of our investment accounts, one I hadn't opened in months. It wasn't a large sum, but the wording made my stomach drop. Account depleted beyond expected loss threshold. Immediate review recommended. At first, I thought it was a clerical error. Mistakes happen. But a nagging unease tugged at me. Something felt off, and I trusted my gut. Jenna and I had been married for 15 years. We had 2 kids, a modest home in suburban Boston, and a life that, from the outside, seemed carefully managed. She was an elementary school teacher, steady and loving, or so I thought. I'd always prided myself on handling our finances, budgeting for college funds, retirement, and unexpected emergencies. Jenna handled the daily stuff, groceries, bills, insurance payments, but investments were my domain. I opened our joint account online. My heart sank. Large withdrawals, transfers to unknown accounts, and cryptic transactions labeled as consulting fees that I hadn't authorized. My pulse raced. It wasn't just bad, it was deliberate. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the screen, trying to rationalize. Could this be a mistake? Maybe a bank glitch? I shook my head. Too many numbers matched patterns only a human could have orchestrated. This wasn't random. It was planned. Then I noticed another pattern. Frequent withdrawals timed around certain weekends. I cross-checked against my calendar and realized Jenna had been away at work trips that didn't exist. The red flags piled up, one after another. The feeling in my gut turned into icy dread. I confronted myself first. Do I tell her? Do I investigate quietly? My instincts screamed that if I acted too soon, I'd tip her off. But what if this was bigger than just missing funds? What if there were other people involved? By Friday, my worst fears began taking shape. Jenna came home, cheerful as always, humming about her teacher conference she attended that day. But when she asked about the documents on the kitchen counter, the same ones I had been obsessively reviewing, I froze. Just some routine paperwork, I muttered. She didn't press. That evening, I started digging into the account history with meticulous attention. A name kept repeating, Mark Rivers, a financial consultant according to the transfers. Yet none of my colleagues or contacts had ever mentioned him, and the email associated with these transactions wasn't a professional address. It was a personal Gmail. Alarm bells rang in my head. I didn't want to believe it, but I had to face reality. Jenna wasn't just hiding losses. She was hiding someone else's involvement, someone who might be exploiting her or working with her. And the more I looked, the clearer it became that this wasn't a minor mistake or a bad investment. This was intentional, potentially fraudulent, and deeply personal. I stayed up all night, cross-referencing dates, emails, and transfers. Every withdrawal linked to Mark Rivers was accompanied by innocuous text messages I hadn't paid attention to before. Can't wait to finalize this. Everything looks perfect. See you soon. The tone was casual, but the implication was chilling. My wife wasn't just having a hidden friendship. This was deep, systematic, and secretive. Saturday morning, I knew I had to act carefully. Confronting Jenna without proof could backfire, but ignoring it wasn't an option. I had to gather evidence, quietly, without tipping her off. My hands trembled as I set up a spreadsheet of every questionable transaction, matching it with every work trip and late-night email. Patterns emerged: withdrawals to Mark, vague invoices, weekend meetings where she claimed to be elsewhere. By Sunday, I realized the shocking truth. Jenna had been hiding investment losses for years, and Mark Rivers had been helping her cover them up, probably taking a cut. My heart sank. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was deeply personal. My spouse, my partner in life, had been keeping a secret double life that involved deception, manipulation, and possibly illegal activity. I poured a cup of coffee, hands shaking, staring out at our quiet suburban street. I remembered the vows we took 15 years ago, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. I never thought worse would involve secret accounts, hidden losses, and a stranger's involvement. But I also knew one thing. I wouldn't react impulsively. No shouting, no accusations, no immediate confrontation. If I was going to reclaim what was taken and protect my family, I needed a plan. I started making a mental list. Document everything. Save all emails, transactions, and evidence in a secure location. Monitor communications without alerting Jenna. Consult a lawyer if necessary. Prepare for the possibility that Mark wasn't just a financial accomplice. He might be emotionally involved too. The first part of my revenge story wasn't dramatic yet. No confrontation, no exposure, no legal battles. But the foundation was set. And the feeling in my chest, the mix of betrayal, fear, and determination, was unmistakable. By Monday evening, I had decided I would see how far this went before taking the next step. I couldn't go back to ignorance. The betrayal was real. The danger, financial, emotional, legal, was real. And if I wanted justice, I needed to move carefully. I closed my laptop, heart pounding, mind racing. I didn't yet know how this story would end, but I knew one thing. My life, my marriage, and my family's security would never be the same. Monday morning felt heavier than usual. I still couldn't shake the image of those mysterious withdrawals and Jenna's secret meetings. Every call, every email, every teacher conference now carried a weight I couldn't ignore. I realized I wasn't just dealing with hidden investment losses. I was staring at a web of deception that had been growing for years. I decided the first step was gathering solid evidence. I couldn't accuse her without proof, and I needed to be careful. Jenna had always been perceptive. I started by downloading months of account statements, emails, and phone logs. Every transfer to Mark Rivers was cataloged. Every weekend she claimed to be away was cross-checked. Patterns emerged. Withdrawals always coincided with nights she worked late. Transfers labeled as consulting fees, and a handful of online purchases that didn't match anything in our home. I created a secure digital folder, encrypted and password protected, away from our shared devices. I also started checking our home network, noticing that she had been deleting browser history in unusually meticulous ways. My heart sank. She wasn't careless. She was calculated. Over the next few days, I began tracking her movements discreetly. Not stalker-like, but carefully noting the times she left, the places she claimed to be, and any unusual contacts. And then, one Friday evening, I noticed something that hit me like a punch. A series of messages between Jenna and Mark on an encrypted app she thought I didn't know about. Everything's on track. Client satisfied. Don't worry about him. Weekend check-in done. Ready for next week. It wasn't just financial. The tone was too familiar, too personal. It suggested a relationship that went beyond spreadsheets and transfers. The betrayal wasn't just money. It was trust, intimacy, and secrecy. I realized that if I confronted her too early, I could lose access to the evidence. I needed a plan, a controlled way to reclaim what was taken and expose the truth without creating irreparable chaos. Saturday morning, I called in a favor from an old friend, Laura, a compliance officer I trusted completely. I explained the situation in vague terms: financial irregularities, suspicious transfers, and possible third-party involvement. She agreed to help me review the documents and advise on legal safeguards. I didn't tell her about the affair yet. It wasn't time. By Sunday, I had a clearer picture. Jenna had been siphoning money to Mark Rivers for 3 years, covering up failed investments and disguising withdrawals as consulting or business expenses. Some funds had gone into offshore accounts under his name, some to personal purchases. The total? Nearly $250,000. I felt a mix of anger, disbelief, and determination. But I also knew something crucial. This wasn't just about money. If I wanted to regain control and exact justice, I had to play smart. Monday evening, Jenna mentioned a late client meeting at a downtown cafe. That gave me an idea. I couldn't follow her physically. It would be too obvious. But I could prepare the confrontation while gathering undeniable proof. I scheduled a meeting with a colleague downtown at the same time, giving me plausible reasons to be nearby. The moment arrived. I entered the cafe under the guise of work, discreetly observing her. She arrived with Mark. I could see them laughing, sharing a laptop, discussing papers. It was intimate, collaborative, and my chest tightened. My wife was working with the man who had betrayed me, and it wasn't a casual professional meeting. I took out my phone and started taking photos from a discreet angle, making sure to capture their faces, the documents, and the laptop screen. I didn't want confrontation yet. I needed undeniable evidence. My pulse raced, but I kept my hand steady. Every click of the camera felt like a step closer to reclaiming control. After 20 minutes, they left separately. Jenna returned home just in time for dinner, casual and unaware that I had proof of everything. I calmly set the table, my mind racing with strategies. Should I involve the bank first, or confront Mark directly? I decided. I would expose her carefully in a way that protected my family and ensured accountability. Over the next few days, I continued my quiet investigation. I installed monitoring software on the home computer with encrypted logs, collected all transaction confirmations, and even confirmed Mark's offshore accounts via legal channels with Laura's help. The puzzle was coming together. The pieces were shocking. Hidden accounts, falsified invoices, repeated offshore transfers. Each discovery fueled my determination, but also my fear of what Jenna would do if she realized I knew. Then came Friday night, the moment I'd been preparing for. I invited Jenna to a financial review at home. She thought it was casual, a conversation about household budgeting. But I had the evidence ready on a secure tablet. As I laid out the spreadsheets, emails, and photos from the cafe, her confident demeanor faltered. "Alex." "What is this?" she asked, voice tight. "I think you know," I said calmly. "The transfers to Mark Rivers, the offshore accounts, the fake consulting fees, all of it. I know everything." Her face went pale. She started stammering excuses, failed investments, desperation, just trying to protect us. But the calm, methodical presentation left no room for lies. I watched her shift from shock to panic. "Mark, you were working with him?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She nodded, unable to speak. That confirmation was all I needed. My revenge didn't need shouting, threats, or public humiliation. The first step had been taken. She was confronted with undeniable proof, and I controlled the narrative. I also made it clear, if she tried to hide, deny, or remove funds again, the next step would involve legal authorities and financial oversight. For the first time, Jenna realized that her secrets had limits, and I had the upper hand. By Sunday, I had not only confronted her, but also secured temporary access to all accounts, frozen questionable transactions, and documented everything in a secure, lawyer-approved format. I was ready for the next phase, exposing Mark Rivers, reclaiming misused funds, and ensuring accountability. The story wasn't over. The danger was still there, and the betrayal still cut deep. But I had taken the first strategic step in my calculated plan. Jenna's smirk of confidence was gone, replaced by fear and realization. And for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control. This was only the beginning of the revenge arc. The clever, precise exposure would come next. And when it did, it would be measured, deliberate, and irreversible. Monday morning felt quieter than usual. Jenna wasn't in the kitchen, and the apartment seemed heavier somehow, filled with unspoken tension. I had frozen her accounts, documented every transaction, and informed Laura that I was ready to move legally if necessary. I knew the next few days would determine whether justice would actually catch up to her, or if she would vanish before any consequence reached her. The first phone call came late morning. It was Mark Rivers, his voice sharp, trying to mask panic. "Alex, listen, this was just business. I didn't mean to," I cut him off, calm, precise, and cold. "It wasn't just business. It was fraud. You've taken thousands illegally. And now I have proof. Every wire, every offshore transfer, every conversation." There was a pause. Then, a hint of fear. "Alex, please, I can make it right." "No," I said. "You're going to face this legally. I've already contacted a lawyer. The authorities will handle it from here. Every transaction is documented, every lie exposed." After hanging up, I took a deep breath. The weight of betrayal was still heavy, but for the first time, I felt momentary relief. This wasn't vengeance in a dramatic sense. It was accountability. Every dollar taken, every trust broken, would be addressed through lawful channels. That afternoon, Jenna returned from what she claimed was a work trip. I handed her an envelope containing a full summary of evidence: transfers, screenshots, offshore accounts, and messages. "Alex, I can explain." "You've had years to explain," I said, voice steady. "Now the authorities will handle your explanation. I've also arranged for counseling to help you understand the impact of your choices. But this isn't about reconciliation. It's about responsibility." I felt a pang of sadness, but also clarity. Betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was financial, legal, and relational. And it required measured response, not impulsive rage. Over the next week, I worked closely with Laura and my lawyer to report the fraudulent transactions. The bank froze the remaining funds in Mark's accounts, and Jenna's access was officially revoked. The process was meticulous and exhausting, but each step felt like a small reclamation of control over a life that had been upended by deceit. Then came the fallout with friends and family. Many were shocked. Some disbelieved at first. But I shared carefully curated evidence, ensuring the story remained factual, grounded, and humane. It was painful to see disappointed expressions, especially from close friends who had unknowingly trusted Jenna with funds, advice, or introductions to Mark. But sharing the truth was part of the healing process, for them, for me, and eventually, for Jenna herself. One evening, I received a note from my older sister, Carla. "Alex, you did what was right. Even though this hurts, your integrity remains intact. The world sees your honesty." It reminded me that trust and character were separate from the actions of someone else. I hadn't caused the betrayal, but I had chosen how to respond, and that response mattered. Weeks passed, and the legal process began. Mark Rivers faced federal wire fraud charges, and Jenna was now listed as a person of interest for aiding and abetting. I wasn't seeking revenge in the dramatic sense. I wanted justice, clarity, and closure. Meanwhile, I began rebuilding my personal life. I revisited investments I had neglected, created stricter financial safeguards, and even started mentoring younger clients on the importance of vigilance, verification, and ethical boundaries. I realized the betrayal had become a catalyst for growth, not a permanent scar. Months later, the case concluded. Mark pled guilty. The authorities recovered part of the lost funds. Jenna faced civil consequences and counseling requirements, along with supervised financial restitution. I wasn't celebrating her downfall. I was simply ensuring that justice had a structured outcome, and that victims were acknowledged and partially compensated. A year later, I reflected on what had happened. My life had been shaken, but the lessons were profound and enduring. Verify before you trust. Even those closest can deceive, intentionally or unknowingly. Document everything. Careful records can protect you from loss and false accusations. Controlled confrontation. Calm, strategic, and evidence-based confrontation is more powerful than rage. Community support matters. Friends, family, and professional allies can stabilize and guide you through chaos. Personal integrity survives betrayal. Responding responsibly, not reactively, preserves character. These lessons weren't just abstract. I shared them in my practice, helping clients avoid similar pitfalls, and in conversations with friends, subtly guiding them toward vigilance without paranoia. Even now, I occasionally think of Jenna, Mark, and the weeks of planning, fear, and anticipation. But I no longer carry the weight of anger. Instead, I carry wisdom, resilience, and purpose. One quiet evening, I sat on my porch with a notebook, reflecting. Sometimes betrayal teaches more than trust ever could. And sometimes, revenge isn't about destruction. It's about reclaiming your life with integrity, exposing the truth, and ensuring justice is served, quietly and effectively. I left space in my journal for others' reflections, subtle encouragement to share experiences or lessons learned. Life had handed me a cruel test, but the outcome wasn't just survival. It was growth, wisdom, and measured justice. I sipped my coffee, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The calm after months of turmoil was satisfying, not dramatic. I hadn't sought a public spectacle or sensational revenge. I had sought clarity, accountability, and peace of mind. And for anyone listening, watching, or reading this story, betrayal can be devastating, but your response defines you more than the deception ever could. Hold evidence, act strategically, and protect your integrity. Revenge, when needed, should be clever, ethical, and precise, not emotional. The story ends quietly, with lessons learned, justice pursued, and integrity maintained. No shouting, no vulgarity, no exaggeration. Just human consequences, real accountability, and the quiet power of reclaiming your life.